Hello everyone, I hope you're doing alright. Today I want to sit down and talk a little bit about R-4. So for those of you who don't know, Q-Dodging Mechanics, which is our team of PvP turbo nerds that does a little PvE on the side together, got together when R-4 dropped and ran through the story mode. We'll eventually go back and do the hard mode, but I wanted to sit down and give a quick review of our experience so far. And I gotta say, I know we've all kind of ripped on BioWare for the 7.0 launch, and of course there's stuff that we can be complaining about, and I'm not saying that those criticisms aren't warranted, but frankly, hats off to the PvE team. The team over there absolutely knows what they're doing. This was so much fun to play through. And half of that comes down to the fact that it was a chance for us to get back together and start playing the game a little bit together again for the first time in a while. So the social aspect was obviously very fun for us. We have a good time together. It's just rare that we actually get a chance to all sit down and play. But the fights themselves were surprisingly engaging. And this isn't really like your grandma story mode. This is an EV story mode, right? There are some actual mechanics that you have to be running through here. I'd call it like hard mode mechanics, but without the hard mode damage. It's like hard mode mechanics, but story mode damage. Let's go with that. It's probably the best way to describe it, where there is stuff you actually have to be paying attention to, and it'll also wipe the group if you're not, realizing what's going on, or if you're trying to progress for the first time. And we actually hadn't seen any of the fights. We'd gone in completely blind. We cleared in about like 2.5 or 3 hours or so. So it was relatively straightforward, but there was a lot of stuff that you had to be paying attention to. So just starting from the beginning, the first boss, pretty hectic. We didn't really know what we were doing to start, and so we kind of stood around for a while until we figured out what the buttons were going on. And I'll go back through and I'll do guides for all these bosses and whatnot. But it was pretty hectic. The floor tiles exploding and doing a fair bit of damage was kind of fun. It made you move around a lot, which was pretty darn nice. As a whole, it was kind of a tank and spank, but with, a couple mechanics here and there. But it was a good, introductory fight. The second encounter was actually pretty good. The mechanics of having to stand still and trying to block, the tanks almost got one-shot a couple times. I was off-tanking for this raid, and there was some pretty hard-hitting abilities that I wasn't expecting that almost did some serious damage to us. So it wasn't like a walk in the park for sure. It was an enjoyable encounter. The tunnel encounter, we were just so bad at it. That was probably the encounter that we just didn't know what we were doing the most on, and so we were just kind of running around with our heads cut off. And I think because we thought it was just like trash and not an actual encounter, we didn't take it as seriously, which led to some serious memeage, which I'm sure will be featured in a video at some point here. But there was stuff to do, there was mechanics to pay attention to, there was group coordination that needed to happen, and that's not stuff that you would expect out of a story mode operation. You kind of expect just tank and spank and hold W during story mode, and that was not the case here. Now, the third boss is probably the most simple of all of them. It kind of felt like a basic tank and spank, which is a little disappointing. There were some aspects of okay, yeah, I'm the off tank, so I don't really have that much to do. I kind of just throw grenades and hit droids once in a while. So that was a little disappointing, but we'll see what it looks like in the actual hard mode fight. And then Lady Dominique is actually a surprisingly good fight. We did run into a couple of bugs here and there, which became a little frustrating. We ran into some situations where she stayed immune forever and we didn't quite know what was going on. We think we figured out how to prevent the bugs from happening, and it might not even have been a bug, it just kind of felt like it. But we ran into a couple of frustrating situations that we eventually figured out how to handle. But the fight itself is really well designed. The opening phase is pretty simple and straightforward. The second phase requires a little bit of group coordination. The third phase is a little bit more simple tank and spank. And then the fourth phase of burn is just really, it's exciting. It makes you pay attention. There's just stuff going on that you actively need to be paying attention to, and that might just be my experience as an off tank here. There's just a lot for the tanks to be doing during this fight, which makes it surprisingly enjoyable. Especially in story mode, it's hard to get enjoyable tank mechanics because the bosses just don't do a whole lot of damage, and they did a good job of finding ways to make your utility really useful and actually doing a surprising amount of damage. It's still story mode, but it's not absolutely terrible. So all in all, I'd have to give this operation a solid A. And that's coming from the perspective of someone who's done his fair share of NIM rating, right? So this wasn't the most challenging raid in existence. I kind of am nervous about the pugs or like the average story mode teams or hard mode teams that want to go through this. It's gonna be a challenge for them. It's gonna be a little tricky getting through some of these operation bosses because it's punishing. There are some situations that are not going to be easy clears for people, and the fact that it's called story mode is pretty deceptive. So I'd have to give this like a solid A. Like I just had a lot of fun doing it. If we didn't run into the encounters or the bugs with Lady Dominique, this would have been an easy A+. That was a little frustrating, especially at the very end of the night when you feel like we're so close to clearing, and then we kind of got screwed over. We feel like, but beyond that, like it was a fantastic time, which is a blessing and a curse because the content is so good, right? Like the PvE team for SWTOR knows what it's doing. Duxon, fantastic operation, very fun, a little buggy, but just an extremely enjoyable time. This new operation, R-4, very well designed fights, well thought out, really fun to play, and it makes me want more, right? It's kind of like going to a really nice restaurant and then they serve you really tiny portions where it is so delicious for the 3 bites you get, but then you're just stuck wanting more and you know you're not going to get some for a while. And so it's the primary frustration with SWTOR is that when it's good, it's so good. It's so good. I had so much fun doing this encounter. They're so well designed. It's creative ideas. It's really, really good. And I know we're not going to get more for like 3 years. It's so frustrating because it's so much fun, but I get it in such short increments. So very well done job. Hats off to the team. Let's be honest, it's been kind of a rocky start for 7.0, right? It hasn't been the world's greatest expansion launch, but really, really hit the nail on the head here, at least for this opening pass at SM. We had a fantastic time clearing it. Very well designed boss fights and surprisingly challenging. We can't wait to get in there and do R-4 hard mode, and so that we can actually be, doing proper content. But this was a fantastic introduction. I'll be doing some little brief guides here for some of these boss fights just because there's a lot going on, and if you're like a story mode team that doesn't have the gear to just bully through everything, it could be a little tricky, and there's just stuff that we learned along the way that I kind of wish that we knew beforehand that we just didn't. So hopefully I can provide some of those insights to you, but that's what's going on. If you want to come and catch the live prog of R-4 hard mode, we do those on Tuesday nights, usually starting around like 9:30 Eastern Central. Eastern time, not Eastern Central. Eastern time, 9 Central. So if you want to come over there and see some of the prog, that's what we'll be doing over there at twitch.tv/the_bigs_gaming. I'll put the link down in the description below. That's what we got. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Hope you're enjoying the R-4 as much as we did. And yeah, good job, BioWare. You really hit the nail on the head. And now I want more. So like, comment, and subscribe. Bye-bye.